Freshman year was supposed to be the start of something clean, something structured. New city, new state, new everything. I was the first in my family to go out of state for college, and when I got accepted into a competitive academic cohort at Briarhall University, I felt like I'd finally broken through. The program came with perks, priority class registration, mentorships, and best of all, placement in the Briarhall Scholars Residence, a sleek new dorm building right in the center of campus. We were the top 2% of our freshman class, handpicked and packed into 5 floors of motivated, nerdy, type of students from all over the country. It took me less than 2 weeks to do something incredibly dumb. Her name was Kelsey, and she lived directly above me, 5th floor, room 512. We met in a study group the first weekend after move-in. She was tall, energetic, wore way too much perfume, and talked like she was the main character in every room. People either gravitated toward her or avoided her like a bad class schedule. I was in the first group, at least at first. We started hanging out after group study sessions. Coffee turned into movie nights. Before I knew it, we were a thing. The relationship moved fast, probably because it was so convenient. Same building, same schedule, no cars, no off-campus distractions. It was like playing house, just with a shared Wi-Fi network and unlimited dining swipes. Kelsey had a way of making everything feel like an adventure, even a walk to the mailroom. I thought she was confident, direct, fun. Everyone else thought she was, a lot. She's kind of intense, huh? My suite mate said once, after hearing Kelsey rant about the concept of group projects. She doesn't really listen, just steamrolls. Kelsey didn't just dominate conversations, she weaponized them. She once bragged with a straight face that she was a fairly aggressive personality, as if it were a LinkedIn endorsement. I laughed when she said it, thought it was quirky. A red flag the size of a mattress tag, and I ignored it. The first real fracture came the week after Thanksgiving break. I had just gotten out of a late bio lab, my brain fried and my clothes smelling like ethanol. As I stepped out into the cold, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. "Hey, are you using your debit card for food deliveries?" No hello, no small talk, just that. I blinked. What? No, why? She told me she'd seen multiple Grubhub charges on my checking account over the last couple weeks. Small ones, mostly under $20, but they added up. I hadn't noticed anything weird because I rarely used that account on campus. My folks had set it up for me in high school, and it was linked to the only debit card I had. I didn't even remember the last time I used Grubhub. The total was $108.36, 6 separate orders, spread over about 2 weeks. My gut reaction wasn't anger. It was confusion. I trusted Kelsey. She was the only one who ever had access to my stuff. Maybe I left my wallet out. Maybe someone copied the numbers. Maybe it was some mix-up. I called her immediately, standing there under a dim campus lamp post with freezing fingers and my stomach twisting. "Hey, did you, by chance, use my card for Grubhub?" Dead silence for a second. Then, "What? No, why would I do that?" I told her about the charges, the dates, the total. She sighed, loud, dramatic, and told me I should cancel the card in case someone had cloned it. "People do that all the time. It's probably random," she said. She sounded annoyed. Not worried, not curious. Just irritated. I hung up and called the bank. It took nearly an hour to get the card canceled and the account locked. Meanwhile, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The next morning, between classes, I reached out to Grubhub on Twitter. Told them I was the victim of card fraud and asked for digital receipts. They replied surprisingly fast, sent over a couple PDFs of recent orders. I expected redacted info, and yeah, technically it was. But whoever did the redacting must have been working with Snapchat tools because the scribble job was pathetic. You could still clearly see the name on the account under the marker blur. Kelsey. Twice. Once from a receipt dated a week ago. Once from 2 hours before I cut up the card. She was probably still licking sauce off her fingers when I was on the phone with the bank. I just sat there, phone in hand, blinking at her name on those receipts. I didn't even feel mad yet. Just hollow. Like my brain hadn't caught up to the evidence. I texted her, screenshot and all. "Hey, Grubhub sent me the receipts." Are you sure you didn't place those orders? Her reply came fast. Screw you for accusing me. No explanation. No denial. Just all caps rage. And right there, in that moment, the real Kelsey started to show. After Kelsey's furious text, I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say, and honestly, I didn't want to escalate anything. I just sat there, alone in my dorm, rereading her words until the letters blurred. Screw you for accusing me. No attempt to explain, no denial, just raw, entitled anger. I thought maybe there was still some kind of misunderstanding. That maybe she panicked, maybe someone else used her phone. Maybe she was scared of getting in trouble. I was still trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, even after seeing her name on those orders. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in bed listening to every sound in the hallway, half waiting for a knock on the door, half hoping this would all blow over. The next morning, I couldn't focus. I skipped breakfast and walked straight to the front desk of the dorm building. I'd remembered something. The pickup station. Every food order had to be signed for at the front desk or grabbed from the designated lockers outside. Our dorm had security cameras pointing right at both. If I could get access to that footage, I could prove without question who picked up those orders. But I never got the chance. That night, not long after I got back from class, there was a knock on my door. I opened it, and there she was. Kelsey, eyes red. Cheeks streaked with mascara, crying. I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside, and she walked in like a ghost. She didn't even sit down. Just stood there in the middle of my room, arms crossed, trembling. I did it, she whispered. She didn't just admit to the Grubhub orders. She unloaded everything, told me how it started as a joke, how she didn't think I'd notice, how she thought it was just a few dollars at first. Then, the bombshell. She admitted to being a serial shoplifter. She said it like it was a personality trait, like being fairly aggressive. Target, Walgreens, campus bookstore, she listed them like old friends. She laughed when she mentioned slipping a $60 hoodie under her coat last month. I stood there, dumbfounded. She wasn't ashamed. She was proud, like she expected me to be impressed. I wasn't. When she was done talking, she just looked at me, waiting for a reaction, an apology, a hug, something. All I said was, "You need to leave." She didn't argue. She didn't cry again. She turned and walked out. And I locked the door behind her. I thought that would be the end of it. Naive, I know. The next morning, whispers started circling the building. I overheard someone in the lounge say, "Did you hear what happened between Kelsey and the guy in 412? Another said she was telling people he stole from her. Seriously, I hadn't told anyone what happened. I didn't have to. Apparently, Kelsey was already spinning a story of betrayal and heartbreak to anyone who'd listen. Painting herself as the victim in some dorm drama soap opera. Fine, I thought. Let her talk. I sent her a short, clear text. We're done. I don't want anything more to do with you. Keep the money. Just leave me alone. I figured $108.36 wasn't worth my sanity. I could replace the cash. I couldn't replace peace of mind. But Kelsey, she had no intention of letting things go. 2 nights later, I was sitting at my desk, headphones on, deep in a lab write-up, when I felt a presence behind me. I turned around. She was in my room. Again. Standing there, dead silent. I hadn't heard the door open. Hadn't noticed her come in. I still don't know if I forgot to lock it, or if she slipped in while someone else was coming or going. Kelsey looked furious. Not crying this time. Not fragile. Just furious. "Give me my stuff." I blinked. "What? Where's my stuff? I don't know what you're talking about." She pushed past me, tore open my closet, rummaged through my drawers, flipped over my laundry basket like she was expecting a hidden vault. "I know you have it." Her voice cracked. Not with sadness, but rage. Then, just like that, she stormed out again. I locked the door this time. 60 seconds later, the knocking began. Tap. Then pound. Then fists. Then kicks. "Open the door. I know you're in there. Give me my damn stuff." The walls were thin. Every resident on the floor could hear her screaming. Doors creaked open down the hall. People peeked out, wide-eyed. But no one stepped in. Kelsey wasn't just shouting. She was trying to break the door down, slamming her shoulder against it. Again. I heard the wood crack on the fourth hit. That's when I remembered. Our resident advisor lived next door. But his room was dark. Panic creeping in, I grabbed my phone and texted him. Emergency. Kelsey trying to break into my room. Help. He replied fast. He was across campus doing rounds, but he was sending backup from the night shift staff. While I waited, I did the only thing I could think of. I hit record. I pointed my phone at the door and filmed. Kelsey was still screaming, pounding, throwing herself at the frame like a battering ram. By the time 3 resident advisors arrived, half the hallway had come out to watch. They pulled her downstairs. She kept yelling about her stuff, which turned out to be a t-shirt and a keychain she'd given me for my birthday. That's it. A $5 souvenir keychain and a stretched-out hoodie. I handed them over the next morning, just to be done with it. But something had changed. This wasn't about food. Or money. Or missing t-shirts. This was about control. And she had just lost it. The morning after the door incident, I thought about pretending it didn't happen. But then I remembered the crack I heard when Kelsey slammed her shoulder into my door. That wasn't metaphorical. The frame was literally splintered. And the way she'd stood there in my room, dead silent, I kept replaying it in my mind. Like a horror movie where the monster wears mascara and knows your schedule. I couldn't ignore it anymore, so I told the story. Not to Reddit, not to my friends, to the people who ran the building. I walked into the resident life office with the receipts, the texts, and the video on my phone. I wasn't out for blood. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted this over. They didn't hesitate. By that afternoon, I was sitting across from the hall director and an official from student conduct. They took my statement, watched the video twice, jotted down dates, paused on the parts where Kelsey shouted through the door, rewound to the moment she hit it like a linebacker. That night, a no-contact order was placed between us. Kelsey wasn't allowed to speak to me. Couldn't visit my floor, couldn't message me, couldn't even send a friend to do it on her behalf. But apparently, she hadn't gotten the memo. Because less than 48 hours later, I found a handwritten note shoved under my door. It wasn't an apology. It was a guilt-trip letter, filled with half-sincere, "I know I made mistakes, and you used to care about me." She wrote like we were still in some twisted love story, like this was just a bump in the road and I'd come running back once I cooled down. I took the note straight to Res Life. That's when things moved up a notch. The campus police got involved. They weren't there to arrest her. Not yet, anyway, but they documented everything. Took copies of the receipts. Took screenshots of the texts. Asked me about the timeline. They said the university would likely push for small claims restitution, but I'd have to take that to court myself, which I couldn't do. I had no car, no lawyer, no extra cash. The officer, a patient guy named Alvarez, gave me a pamphlet. "You might also want to speak to Title X," he said. I blinked. "Isn't that for, other stuff?" He shook his head. "It covers more than just assault cases. This falls under harassment and intimidation. You should file. Even if you don't want to press anything, they'll log it." So I did. I emailed Title X and attached everything I had. The receipts, the video, the story. A week later, I got a reply from a staff representative named Monica, who asked to meet. We sat in her office, a quiet, professional space with a couch that was too soft and fluorescent lights that buzzed faintly overhead. I told her everything. By the time I finished, Monica leaned back in her chair, folded her hands, and said something that made my stomach tighten. "This warrants disciplinary charges. Potentially multiple." That's not what I came for. I thought I'd just fill out a form. Instead, I was now part of a process that had real weight. Hearings, decisions, outcomes. I asked Monica if I had to participate. She said, "You can back out any time. But you should know, we're already moving forward." And then she told me the hearing would be held early next semester. I asked for the date. February 14th. I almost laughed. Of course it was Valentine's Day. By the time winter break rolled around, the whole building knew what had happened, or at least a version of it. I didn't do much damage control. I stayed in my lane. But word got around. Some people avoided me like I was radioactive. Others asked questions in quiet corners. Did she really try to break down your door? Was she actually stealing? Kelsey, of course, had her own version circulating. In her story, I had given her permission to use my card, then turned psycho after we broke up. She claimed I was holding her stuff hostage, like I was the one refusing to let go. The worst part. Some people believed her. That stung more than I expected. There was one guy, a classmate in my stat course, who confessed during a group project that Kelsey had tried to hook up with him while she was dating me. He turned her down multiple times, and she got cold and stopped talking to him. She tried to cheat on me. And now she was painting me as the bad guy. When I got back to campus in January, I kept my head down. Didn't talk about the hearing. Didn't reply to gossip. But when I learned that Kelsey had a new boyfriend, living in a different dorm, I couldn't help but smile. Because I knew what they didn't. Valentine's Day was coming. And Kelsey had a date. Not with romance, but with consequences. February 14th. I walked across campus with my coat zipped high and a folder tucked under my arm. The wind was slicing sideways between the buildings. Some students were holding flowers. Others walked hand in hand, bundled up and laughing. Meanwhile, I was headed to a disciplinary hearing. The meeting room was in a small administrative wing of the university I'd never stepped foot in before. It looked like a cross between a DMV office and a high school counselor's lounge. Beige walls, gray carpet, plastic chairs. No windows, no charm. Inside, 3 grad students made up the hearing board. They looked exhausted before we even began. Monica, my Title X rep, greeted me with a calm, professional nod. She handed me a bottle of water and told me to sit tight while they brought Kelsey in. But she didn't come alone. She walked in like a contestant on some twisted reality show, chin high, shoulders back, flanked by both of her parents, and a lawyer. That's right. Kelsey's parents had hired a private attorney. The guy wore a navy blue suit that screamed billable hours and had a legal pad tucked under his arm. He shook hands with the hearing board like he was stepping into court. He tried to introduce himself as lead counsel, but one of the board members cut him off. Sir, this is not a court of law. You may remain present as an advisor. Kelsey's mom looked insulted. Her dad looked confused. The lawyer looked annoyed. Meanwhile, Monica leaned over and whispered, "You're allowed to have representation too, if you want." I laughed under my breath. Like I could afford that. She smiled. We actually provide volunteer advocates. That's how I got paired up with Jamie, a junior econ major who volunteered with the Student Legal Advisory Board. He walked in 5 minutes later wearing a wrinkled button-up, glasses halfway down his nose, and carrying a laptop covered in banned stickers. I'd emailed him the full story the week before, but I didn't expect much. Instead, Jamie sat down, reviewed my folder, and grinned. "You brought the video, right?" I nodded and handed him a flash drive. "We're gonna be just fine," he said. The board opened with statements, reading the charges aloud. Unauthorized use of funds aka theft, threatening behavior, harassment involving dorm staff. Kelsey's lawyer objected immediately. My client contests the narrative. "We'd like to submit a statement explaining that any purchases made were consensual." One of the board members cut him off again. "Sir, we do not allow objections. This is not a courtroom." He huffed and sat down. Then it was my turn. Jamie queued up the evidence while I gave a measured, detailed summary of what happened, from the Grubhub orders to the door incident, to the no contact violation. I was calm. Just the facts. No flair. When I was done, Jamie clicked play. The video took up the whole projection screen. Kelsey's voice came through, clear as day, shrieking outside my door. Her fists slamming, her shoulder smashing into the frame, her screaming that I was hiding her stuff. Her parents sat frozen. Her lawyer scrambled for a pen. And then, the line, "I know you're in there, damn it." It echoed in the silent room like a gunshot. I turned to glance at her parents. Her mother had turned pale. Her father leaned forward, whispering frantically. Her lawyer muttered under his breath, flipping through paperwork that suddenly didn't matter. "Why didn't you tell us you did this?" her mom hissed. Kelsey didn't say a word. Just stared straight ahead like none of it was real. Then her lawyer stood up. "This video was not provided in pre-trial discovery." The board member didn't even look up. "This is not a trial. I object." "You can't object. Sit down." "Jamie, He was trying not to laugh. And me. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt relieved. This wasn't about revenge. It was about having proof. For months, it had been her story against mine. She had told anyone who would listen that I was the crazy one. That I was cruel, controlling, manipulative. And now, with one clip, all of that crumbled. The hearing lasted another 2 hours, mostly formalities and back-and-forth arguments. Kelsey spoke briefly, still trying to spin her version, claiming emotional stress, misunderstanding, that I invited her in the first time. She stammered, contradicted herself, dodged direct questions. The board took notes. No reaction, no smiles, just cold observation. At the end, we were dismissed so they could deliberate. 30 minutes later, I got the email. Kelsey had been found responsible on all 3 counts. The board's decision. She would be removed from the residence hall. Her family would be required to pay restitution, though not the full amount, because her lawyer managed to argue that 2 of the orders looked duplicated. She would be referred for behavioral probation and a full academic review. In short, she was out. Not arrested. Not expelled, but removed from our building, cut off from our program, and marked by her own record. And the best part. Every person she lied to now knew the truth. The day after the hearing, campus felt quiet, not in a peaceful way. More like the eye of a storm. I hadn't seen Kelsey, but I didn't have to. Word had already started spreading. Whispers in the dining hall. Double takes in the quad. One guy in my chem lecture leaned over and asked, "Dude, is it true she brought a lawyer?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. People were piecing it together on their own. Kelsey had spent the first semester building this image. A confident, fearless, outspoken queen bee of our building. She knew everyone, and more importantly, she made sure everyone knew her. But now, the shine was gone. People stopped making eye contact with her in the hallway. Girls who used to laugh at her jokes now crossed the lobby without saying a word. Guys who once tried to flirt suddenly found their headphones very interesting when she walked by. Her new boyfriend dumped her 2 days after the hearing. He'd heard the full story, not from me, but from someone who watched the hearing video. Apparently, Monica had shown it to the resident life team as part of training on student harassment cases. Word got around. Kelsey wasn't just infamous. She was radioactive. A week after the hearing, she moved out. I heard it through the wall first, the dragging of boxes, the slap of tape. Then I saw her pass my door on the way out, flanked by 2 resident advisors. She didn't look at me. I didn't look at her. She was transferred to a dorm on the far edge of campus, one of the older ones without central air in building laundry. She had no roommate, no visitors, no social circle left. She was isolated. And failing. Literally. One of my classmates in the scholars program told me that Kelsey had flunked every single course that fall. Apparently, her grades had already tanked before the hearing, and after the move, she stopped attending altogether. Her scholarship gone. And once her parents got the final bill, lawyer fees, tuition, housing fines, dining plan, restitution, they pulled the plug. 2 weeks later, she was withdrawn from the university. No announcement. No final goodbye, just gone. A month passed. Then 2. Spring thaw crept in. Finals approached. Life moved on. And I realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. It's weird, you'd think after everything, I'd feel triumphant. Vindicated. Like I won some war. But all I felt was clear. For months, I'd been doubting myself. Wondering if I was too harsh, too petty, too cold. Wondering if maybe I was the problem, because Kelsey had made it feel that way. She was good at that. But when the truth came out, and people believed it, something inside me finally unclenched. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I was just a guy who trusted the wrong person and did the right thing when it mattered. That was enough. So where's everyone now? Last I heard, Kelsey came back the following fall as a part-time student, but not in the scholars program. She lived off campus and kept a low profile. I never saw her again. The no-contact order was still in place. Her name faded from conversation like smoke from a snuffed candle. Me. I kept my head down, focused on school. I stayed in the program, made new friends, Kept that Grubhub folder buried in a USB drive like a war medal I never planned to show again. Oh, and Jamie, my student advocate. We're still connected on LinkedIn. He got an internship with a federal agency last summer, and the guy Kelsey tried to cheat with. He's actually one of my closest friends now. Go figure. Some stories end with fireworks. Mine ended with a sigh of relief. After the hearing, the screaming, the silence, and the withdrawal, things finally went still. Kelsey disappeared from my world the same way she entered it, suddenly. No final confrontation. No apology. No dramatic last message. Just, gone. There were moments, though, strange, random ones, where I'd catch a scent of her perfume in the library or hear someone laugh like she used to, and my stomach would twist for half a second before my brain caught up. Trauma has muscle memory, but over time, even those faded. I focused on what mattered. I took harder classes, got into research, rebuilt friendships that had quietly withered during the storm. I even started tutoring first-year students in the same building where everything had gone down. It wasn't about being brave. It was about reclaiming space. One night, toward the end of the semester, I was sitting in a quiet corner of the student union grading a stack of lab worksheets, when a familiar face walked by. Monica, the Title X representative. She saw me, smiled, and came over. We talked for a few minutes. She asked how I was doing, how the semester was going. I told her things had finally calmed down. I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. Then she said something I never forgot. You know, most people don't report things like that. Especially guys. They don't want to seem weak. I shrugged. I didn't want to report it either. She nodded. But you did. And because you did, we were able to stop something before it got worse. She paused. You weren't just protecting yourself. You may have protected the next person, too. That stayed with me. You want a twist? A tiny one. About a year after everything happened, I got a friend request on Facebook. I didn't recognize the name, but the profile picture looked vaguely familiar. It was the resident advisor from that night. The one who wasn't there. The guy I'd texted in a panic while my door cracked under pressure. I accepted out of curiosity. A few hours later, I got a message. Hey. Just wanted to say, I've always regretted not being on duty that night. I should have been there. I'm really glad you got through it. It wasn't a big thing. Just a small, unexpected piece of kindness. But it meant a lot. I never replied. Didn't need to. So yeah. That's the story. The girl I dated stole from me, lied to my face, tried to physically force her way back into my life, and ended up watching her world unravel in a cramped disciplinary hearing room. Thanks, mostly, to a blurry video I almost didn't record. She lost her dorm. Lost her program. Lost the carefully curated narrative she tried to force down everyone's throat. And me. I got something better than revenge. I got my peace back. Would I go through it again? God, no, but did I come out stronger? Absolutely. And if nothing else, I'll never date anyone who calls themselves fairly aggressive, ever again. Lesson learned. To sum it up, my ex stole money for food using my debit card, denied it, tried to bust into my dorm screaming for her stuff, got hit with disciplinary charges, brought a lawyer to the university hearing, was destroyed by video evidence, got evicted from housing, failed all her classes, and was eventually pulled from school by her parents. I kept my head down, got justice, and made it out clean.